Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, no matter who it is upon, because prisoners' lives matter. I said no matter who it is upon, because prisoners' lives matter. They abolished slavery but built prisons. Chattel slavery was real. Over 800,000 black bodies are sitting in prison because of the injustice in the criminal justice system. Over 800,000 black bodies are sitting in prison because of the injustice in the criminal justice system. Justice is not blind to color. Nobody really knows how many wrongfully convicted people are sitting in the prison system in the United States of America. But one thing we do know, they are there. The truth is, many of them will die. With nearly 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States, statistics say between 20,000 and 100,000 innocent human bodies are sitting in prison right now. What are we going to do? I said, what are we going to do? This generation. It's going to take this generation. My name is Nautica Afeni Dennis. My mission in life is to free the innocent, one voice at a time. What's up, you guys? It's your host with the most, Nautica Dennis, and I'm back with Jonathan Thomas tonight. I hope you all had an amazing Tuesday. I need you guys to log on to iuradio.org and hit that subscribe button for our newsletter. This newsletter contains monthly updates on all of our guest stars. In last week's episode, we learned that Jonathan was arrested years later after the crime took place. Salem County used the testimony of individuals who lied on the stand. People who literally lied under oath. The state used their testimonies to obtain a wrongful conviction. We also learned that all of those individuals recant. Thomas M. admits that someone gave him drugs and money to lie to the police. Daryl M. is facing 2 decades for robbery and other crimes. Then the state gave him favorable treatment to testify on their behalf. The last individual, Shamik, does the same like the rest. All of this is very important because the state used those statements to bolster their case. Then an individual, Leslie B., comes into the picture. Her statement contradicts Michael M.'s statement. Jonathan, there's so much facts the listeners want to know. I'm going to pass the spotlight over to Jonathan, and both of us are just going to jump right into this. I don't want to waste any more of your time. For the record, is it true that you did obtain affidavits from all the above mentioned individuals and presented them to the courts as newly discovered evidence? If so, what was the court's ruling?
Yes, as I have mentioned before, I have submitted a substantial amount of affidavits and evidence, and I'm certain will change the verdict of any jury.
Wow.
However, all the evidence has been submitted before a judge and is currently awaiting a decision on the bill.
Wow. See, this proves my point. The judicial system is not designed or structured for an individual to present claims of actual innocence. As I said before, we need to change the way we do things here in New Jersey. It takes at least 10 to 15 years before an individual can bring their actual innocent claims to the court, and that is after he exhausts all of his appeals. This is a travesty because no one wins. You and your family and the victim's family. You are seeking justice, but the state will continue to use political propaganda to keep you and others like you in prison. Jonathan, let me ask you. While looking through your file, I noticed that the victim, Mr. Hayes' phone was recovered from the crime scene. Did the police search his call log to check to see who the victim was in contact with last?
Yes, his call log was looked into, and it was discovered that the person he was talking to last before he was killed was also seen running from the scene.
Whoa. What? You mean to tell me the police obtained the victim's phone and didn't pursue their investigation into the last person he last spoke to? This is crazy.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Jonathan, we all know this is police work 101. We see it on TV all the time, man. They check all leads to see where the evidence take them, and in my opinion, I believe that is exactly what they did. They searched the call log and found out that it didn't lead back to you and ignored the truth. They wanted you so bad they allowed the real killer or killers to be free. This is crazy. Also, Jonathan, when we looked through your files, I saw that shell cases were found at the crime scene. Is it true that those cases found matched an earlier shooting in your city?
Yes, that's true, but the police never conducted any follow-ups.
Whoa. Whoa. Isn't that something, man? Isn't that something? The shell cases match the ballistics from a previous shooting that happened earlier that day. And you mean to tell me they don't know and don't have any leads from that previous shooting? Yeah, they do. They do. But like I said, if they would have connected the dots to the shooting that happened earlier, this would have led them to the true killer or killers, to Mr. Hayes. But they were so fixated on getting Jonathan and taking him down by any means necessary. This is a clear case of third-party guilt, meaning that someone else could have done the crime that you're wrongfully convicted for, especially if there is evidence that points to this. Did your attorney argue this at trial? If not, why?
Yes, my trial attorney tried to argue third-party guilt at my trial, but he always hit a dead end because the state always objected, saying we didn't have any proof to our arguments, and the judge always seemed to side with the prosecutors.
Wow. See, the system of judges that was once lawyers or prosecutors, and lawyers seeking to be judges, it is all a buddy-buddy system. I say this all the time. And third-party guilt would have opened the door for you. Jonathan, it is this evidence that has the potential to create doubt in the minds of the jury, and that is all you need, is one juror to doubt. And that's a not guilty verdict. And that's the reason why your lawyer couldn't argue at. And that's from a technical point of view. But this third-party guilt evidence had the potential to point to the actual perpetrator. So, just for the listeners' understanding, let me just recap. We have all witnesses recant and change their story, all saying you were not the one that committed the murder. Then there is an alibi witness saying you were at a party and not committing the murder. More shocking is the victim's phone found at the crime scene, which showed who he was last in communications with. Did you ever try to obtain the victim's phone record?
Yes, it was all his phone records. It was part of my discovery.
Right. And the reason why I said it is important to get the phone record is because your argument would go from saying what they may have done to what they did. The phone records is the digital fingerprint to your claim of third-party guilt. It bolsters your claim of actual innocence. It points to someone other than you. That's why I said to retrieve those records. If you put an Oprah request in, that's when your fight begins. Because an Oprah request gives you the permission to seek this type of public document. More than likely, it may have been in the possession of the prosecution. More times than not, they, meaning the prosecution, has an unwritten rule to never give a criminal defendant his entire trial file. That's why an Oprah request is vital in this case. So, Jonathan, is it true that you have evidence to prove that Leslie Bundy and Daryl Mazengwa lied in their original statement? If so, what is it?
Yes, I have newly discovered evidence of direct proof that two of the state's witnesses lied. The prosecutors knew this information and still presented these witnesses to a public court on isolated incidents at different locations, one being in the state prison and the other being in the county jail. Two of the state's witnesses say they was involved in conversations where my co-defendants admitted to them that they did the shooting. However, since my trial, jail documents have been produced stating these witnesses wasn't even locked up or even around any of my co-defendants. This is clear proof of the state presented fraud testimony to the courts.
Here's what's troubling to me. The crime scene investigator collected bullets, marijuana, and most importantly, a 9mm handgun. All of these items were found at the crime scene and collected by those officers. What is so criminal is all of these items go missing. Is that true, Jonathan?
Yes, that is true. But what is more interesting, nobody has the answers as to where any of this evidence went.
Right.
Especially this 9mm, because according to the Because according to the reports, the victim was shot with a 45 and a 38. So where does this 9mm come from?
Yes. Why did they get rid of this? That is my question. Is it because the 9mm fingerprints would have pointed to the individual who was responsible for the murder of Mr. Hayes? Or was this a continuation of a cover-up that perpetuated by the Salem Police Department and Salem County Prosecutor's Office? So your next move, I believe, is filing a criminal complaint against all officers involved in collecting evidence at Salem Police Department, because that's criminal and they should be in jail for that. I think what Charlene Daniels says is crucial to your third-party defense as well. She said that she saw Marquise Brown and Mark Brown running with guns, and I emphasize that she saw this. This is very powerful information that should have been in front of the jury at trial. Have you presented all of this evidence to the CRU, the Conviction Review Unit?
Yes. All this is very powerful information that wasn't presented during my trial, but has been submitted on my appeal as newly discovered evidence. I haven't personally written the CRU about my case yet because my understanding is that they have a policy that they don't take cases that are still in the course on appeal.
Right. And speaking of the CRU, this past August, Teron Hill and I put together a rally for the wrongfully convicted. And it was at this rally that I put the Conviction Review Unit on notice, letting them know basically that I was speaking on the behalf of the families of the wrongfully convicted, in which I asked for full transparency with the status of every case that the CRU is investigating. Full transparency is needed because what most taxpayers don't know is millions of dollars was given to the CRU to ultimately investigate and free those who have been wrongfully convicted. Today, listen to me when I say this, you guys. Today, they have released only one individual since its inception in 2019. The CRU continues to meander when it comes to investigating and releasing those who have been wrongfully convicted. They continue to hide behind and use the COVID crisis as an excuse. However, this wasn't an excuse when they continued to conduct trials via Zoom. Mr. Thomas, I am sick and tired of government officials using political propaganda to pivot themselves when it's needful and reposition themselves when it's beneficial. So I'm calling for the CRU to release their annual report, which was supposed to be submitted to the Attorney General. And it is in that report that in full detail they released their findings and recommendations for necessary procedural and legal reforms. We need the Attorney General to release or turn over that report immediately. Lastly, I'm asking the CRU unit or the Attorney General to do a thorough investigation into Mr. Thomas in the Salem 3 case. Mr. Thomas, is it true that Mr. Calloway gave an affidavit in which he says Maurice Brown admitted to him that he was the one that killed Joseph Hayes?
Yes, this is true, and as I have mentioned before, I have submitted a substantial amount of evidence to the court that no jury in America can ignore. However, I have to wait for the judge to make a decision for my appeal.
Y'all, this makes what Charlene Daniels say true. This literally connects the dots. This entire case comes to light. Just like the state used circumstantial evidence to wrongfully convict you, Jonathan, I'm going to take that same evidence, turn it around, and expose the truth in order to vindicate you. Do you have anything to say to the legal community before we go, Jonathan?
Yes. I just want to inform the legal community that the injustice that is being done to myself and my co-defendants is only one example of how the system is flawed. It feels like we are only a few raindrops in the ocean, where there are many families out there suffering from similar injustices. Even the family of the victim in this case has to suffer because of unethical police conduct. And I challenge those who are part of the legal community to continue to be a voice for the voiceless in this pursuit for justice.
Wow. And before we go, how can people contact you, Jonathan?
Those that want to continue to support my struggle can follow me on Instagram at Justice for Jonathan, or you can hit me up on Facebook. My name is Jonathan Thomas.
Wow. Jonathan, man, it was truly a pleasure to formally meet you, and it was a pleasure to have you here on IU Radio. Just know you have our support here, and we're going to continue fighting for you through this fight. And I just want to thank you guys for listening to
IU Radio.